Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason. Sure hope you're excited for today's match because it is going to be a special one. Today, what I've got for you is a map that we don't see all too often, goes by the name of Industrial Revolution. One of my favorite maps, although I think highly slept on. It's really, really cool. It's got a whole bunch of different lanes that these players are going to be vying for control over today. I'll get into all that in just a second, right after we meet our team leader. So, spawning over here on the front lines of the blue team is an Armada commander. Goes by the name of Shutdown here. Gonna be playing right up on the front without a teammate here. Interesting decision to put Papa Smurf TV in the backline here. Shutdown going to be coming in at 34 true skill, Silvertail of chevrons as well. We do also have Mr. Tumnus hailing from Germany here. Gonna be spawning in the southern side. Very experienced player. You can see those silver chevrons indicating quite a significant amount of time put into the game. All the way on the other side of the map. Spawning a bit further off the front line in, I guess, the back line. Kind of a weird spot, and I'll talk about that in just a second here. Goes by the name of Irish Stud 14. Stud Irish Stud 14? I guess that's their clan tag, right? Reminds me of the old Xbox Call of Duty gamer tag, clan tag days. Boy, were those some golden eras of gaming. Gonna be spawning as a Cortex Commander going into that air lab here. Love to see that because, of course, those Shuriken can be extremely powerful as a tool for, well, one, denying any run-bys of any sort, any medium tanks, anything like that that pushes through. But also, of course, those Shuriken can be great on offense, too. You can use them to shut down enemy units or even enemy static defense if there's no anti-air there. Popping a LLT or two with a couple of those EMP beams can definitely make it a whole lot more cost-effective to push forward with lighter units, say ticks or pawns or grunts or anything like that. Definitely going to be interested to see what goes on here. Tumnus, spawning on the southern side, has decided to go into an air lab. This is a cheeky start. I don't know I've ever seen somebody start an air lab here. We'll have to see how that goes. Oh yeah, finish that. Okay. I was a little worried we were going to forget about the energy storage right there, but we will not. So Mr. Tumnus will have enough energy storage in the bank at the very least as soon as these wind turbines come up and running. Those airplanes, they definitely take quite a lot. Boy, this base is something else, huh? Wind turbines in just about every which way. Yeah, well, if it works, it works. And I guess we'll see if it works. So Industrial Revolution has a lot of different lanes. Interestingly, this bottom lane has notably these two different pools with a bunch of water in them. However, it's not really worth it to go for Navy units because obviously you go for Navy units, you're only really going to be able to contest kind of your half of the map here. So yeah, naval units are kind of out, which does mean that hovercraft make an appearance quite often and in a big way. Text roaming across the map right here, straight through the middle. It does appear. In a one-on-one battle, technically speaking, the rover is supposed to win against the tick. However, the ticks are quite easy to out-micro the rovers with, so oftentimes we see those end up winning the fight. LLT up here, though, will be more than enough to blast those ticks down. Ooh. There we go. We do catch that one right there. Very good to see. Might be able to snipe a metal extractor early on with it. Yeah, that's quite nice. Excellent trade for one of those ticks right there. It will eventually be cleaned up, but that's a whole metal extractor that's gonna have to be replaced. We do have constructors to try and clean that up eventually here, but this is really where all the problem is. Up on this backside, which I will try and get you a perspective of. Oftentimes these pipes can get a little bit in the way here. There we go. If I zoom in close enough, looks like they kind of go away. Anyways, Dovdar gonna be playing on this northern section here. This is the Hot Pink Commander, and you can see just how important this is. Surprisingly, the blue team doesn't have a commander pushing that northern side. I guess Papa Smurf TV is kind of sending forces that way. Couple of blitzes, a constructor, all that sort of stuff, but this is a lot of metal that comes under control, but also a tremendous amount of positional advantage. You can see there's these little ramps that lead down into the blue side right here. All of this going to be quite useful if the Hot Pink Commander does want to put a little bit of pressure onto the blue team. There's also this ramp which leads down this way. There's this metal extractor right here you can take out with that. There's also, of course, the base right here of the blue team. Also a massive open front line as well. Opportunity paths all over the place. That's what I'm trying to convey here. And as for the time being, yeah, Akumu is transporting forward. You can see the hesitation here, kind of step by step. Transported forward, take this mech, said, oh, okay, no retaliation there. Transported up here, didn't see anything. You saw him plop down the mechs there and then think better of it. Yeah, if nobody's up here, I might as well just claim this whole island. And I think that's a great idea. You can lock down these two metal extractors up here and then sort of spread downwards in either one of these directions, kind of come down like this, and then eventually you have kind of gained control over this entire area. Really powerful to besiege from this high ground right here. You can imagine shell shockers firing away. Can be quite devastating. Big old battle on the front line. Those Shuriken trying their very best out here, but unfortunately, with the missile trucks coming up and running here, not going to be able to get all too much value out. Little hovercraft sneaking its way over on this side. I wonder if we're going to see some action over there. Transported commander for Tumnus. Love to see the scout plane included as well, just to make sure we don't accidentally lose that commander. You might have noticed, by the way, that this is a 5 versus 5, not your typical 8 versus 8. I'm a big fan of 5 versus 5, actually. I've come to appreciate it as of recently. the way that it ends up working out means that each player has a little bit more impact on the game, and I think that's definitely interesting. I think it makes for some interesting engagements right here. It also means that most players have the economic freedom to go for strategies that otherwise they wouldn't be able to afford. For instance, multi-teching into, say for instance, planes as well as bots or vehicles allows a little bit more width of play rather than so much just rushing up to T2 every single match. We're gonna need someone else in this front line immediately. Papa Smurf TV trying to contribute forces kind of in every direction here and honestly failing to do so. We do have some blitzes trying to run by over here, but there's a massive army of pawns. I think that's more than enough pawns. Excellent positioning on those bots right there, parked right at the gates to the red team's back line right here, and those pawns will catch those blitzes as they struggle to climb up that hill. Beautiful, beautiful situation right there for the yellow commander. I'm sure Akumu is absolutely thrilled about that. 1467 desperately trying to push up this hillside right here. We do have a couple of pawns that have managed to squeak their way through, but they're looking quite low health here. This is going to be quite dangerous. Okay, Shuriken out in the water here. Yeah, not bad. Sergera is going to be dipping his toes out into the water here. I think probably expected more resistance out in the water, so you can see those LLTs coming up here, but certainly has the right idea to push out into the water, blast down those hovercraft, and eventually get a naval defense set up. Torpedo launchers, obviously quite powerful. Can also go for some of those hover, what are they called? Hover heavy laser towers. Quite a mouthful. Davidara, uncontested, effectually. Are we going to put anything over here? Blue team essentially not responding to the crazy imminent threat of the hot pink commander, who could push back down in this direction and absolutely obliterate the backline right here. This needs to be addressed immediately. One of the options, of course, is that maybe some of these units could come up into the backline of the hot pink commander, Davidara, and blast away all these metal extractors back here. Quite a squishy underbelly for the hot pink commander, who right now, oh yeah, that's weird, drew up the layers right there for the hot pink commander, who has, well, reinforcements coming out, but those reinforcements could be shut down. Obviously more efficient to pick off those reinforcements when they're not balled up in a big group. You take effectively a multiple unit fight against a single unit fight. Just about no matter what units you use. Pardon me. Yeah, those units are going to trade out quite efficiently. Big old Janus plays over here, firing multiple Janus rockets into the face of the enemy. Max Chaos taking those Janus missiles on the chin, trying to shake them off here. Always tricky with the Janus. If it fires and you survive, you want to push into it. If it doesn't fire, you definitely don't want to push into it. That was a nice catch with the Shuriken right there. Love the little usage of the Shuriken. It's sort of a strategic deployment, right? We're not using them all over the place. We're not using them willy-nilly. Just kind of using them wherever it seems like they're going to be most valuable here. We do have an offshore torpedo launcher over here. That's going to be nice. At the very least, deny this commander marching forward. I think that thing could probably kill a commander if it tried to walk up that ramp right there. That's how powerful those are. And lo and behold, as predicted, whole bunch of bots suddenly applying a bunch of pressure up on this northern side. Davdara's economy, representing 22 metal per second, 270 energy per second. Gonna be going up against Papa Smurf, who has Smurf TV, who has 16 metal per second. Whoa, pardon me. Had a bad case of the hiccups earlier. Thought I figured it out before the cast, but maybe they're coming back to haunt me. I know this crazy trick to solve hiccups. You're not gonna believe me. It's a trick that old Mima Brightworks taught me way back in the day. You have to get a glass of water and bend over as if you were gonna like tie your shoes or something. You put your lips on the top of the cup and drink the water upside down, and your hiccups go away. I can't explain it. No idea how it works or why it works. All I know is every time I do that, I burp a little bit, and then my hiccups are gone, usually in a couple of minutes. Anyway. Random hiccup side tangent aside, love that we have the anti-air bot here to try and shoot down those Shuriken, but they did still do a fabulous job of stopping all these bots from pushing forward right here. And suddenly, Davdara did set up a forward bot lab, by the way, just because reinforcements were going to take an absolute millennia to hit the front lines otherwise. It's actually finding himself in a little bit of a tricky situation here. Gonna have to use that commander as sort of a fallback point here. Yeah, those grunts aren't really going to cut it. I'm thinking that lab might have been a little bit of a misread right here. There are units streaming across on all sides, though, and you can certainly see 1467 in quite a lot of trouble. Shuriken now coming out here. Yeah, I guess the Rocketeers can technically shoot up at those Shuriken. One of those weird conversations that they have back at the barracks. Like, hey, man, I shot down a Shuriken earlier. What are you talking about? You can't shoot Shuriken. Yeah, man. Targeting software walked on. Said I could. And so it was. Every Rocketeer from then on was able to shoot at Shurikens. Yeah, Rocketeer have a nice little path to escape right here. This little alleyway right here is really, really dangerous for the blue team. It's letting so many units into their back line right now. Love that Irish Stud is continuing to use those shuriken. An excellent pull on the fighters as well, trying to shoot down the shuriken of the enemy here. Akumu going for mass vehicle fab up on this high ground, though. That's pretty powerful. Oh, can the vehicles not go down there? Oh, no. Never mind. That's a terrible, terrible situation. Yeah, the Yellow Commander suddenly has all these medium tanks that actually can't go down the ramp right here. Yeah, you can see Akumu trying to figure out why. Oh, no. The ramps are too steep for those vehicles to traverse, and so the Yellow Commander has no option but to eat up all those tanks. What a bummer. Yeah, you can see him trying desperately. The tanks simply cannot traverse that ramp right there. Lab shuts down. We're going to need a bot lab transition here. Not to mention the couple thousand metal and tanks that is going to have to be re-eaten and turned into another lab. There's the bot lab here. To be fair, though, I mean, it's about 2,500 metal worth of T1 medium tanks. You just turn all that into a whole bunch of tech, essentially. Go for a T2 lab. You're gonna be in a great spot. Salamanders have been built here by the Orange Commander. Love to see it. These Salamander tanks are extremely powerful, building them out of a amphibious gantry over here, amphibious complex, producing a couple of those tanks. We even have a Poison Arrow coming up. Poison Arrow is kind of a cool unit. I always compare it to the Bull. I ever see pushback for that, but I stay firm that it's a pretty equivalent counter to the Bull. Kind of Cortex equivalent in the sense that it's a bit more expensive, not exactly as capable. Also takes a little bit of a weird tech path to produce. But overall, I think it can definitely fill a similar purpose. It's a very heavy tank, fires a very heavy projectile. A single very heavy projectile, as is the Cortex way. Big bombing run coming across the map here. There we go, we are eating those medium tanks, by the way. Good to see. This bombing run should absolutely hit like a truck here. No reason these bombers shouldn't be able to carpet bomb essentially everything over here. You can right click or hit A and then right click and drag and make a nice little spread like that. Beautiful bombing connection. Blast down the lab right there. Yeah, we should definitely take out the power production as well. There is a ferret that pop up anti-air missile battery. They're quite difficult to kill. They're extremely bomber resistant, which is a especially handy trait to have if you're under siege from a whole bunch of these Cortex T1 bombers. The Whirlwinds. Yeah, just like that. 1467 completely reduced to atoms here. Cheeky Resbot trying desperately to eat up that wreckage of the commander, but he's not done yet. When they built this fella, they forgot to put in the quit. It's a favorite quote from Buster Scruggs, if I do say so myself. A couple of Resbots coming up on the front lines here, too. Would love to see these used for repair function. Right now they're rezzing, but I think repairing all these units right up might be the appropriate use. Just to make sure enough HP stays in this army composition right here that we can keep applying pressure. Smurf TV definitely has a huge composition of tanks up there, though. Bombers not finished with their official business, though. There they go, deploying those heavy impact bombs right across the wind turbines over here. Beautiful bombing runs. Excellent job by the red team. Overall, just taking excellent care of making sure that they're taking advantage of their teammates' plays right here. So all those units from Akumu marching through and doing some follow-up damage after the bombers have taken out everything else over there. We do have a massive counter push right here, and there's no production for the Yellow Commander right here, so he's at the whims of his teammates' defenses, whether his economy in the backline will survive or not. Certainly we could go for a little bit more economy. Yeah, now we're up to a T2 lab. It's good to see. Janus is hunting down the commander. Oh, it's close. One more Janus, and I think they would have gotten it, but unfortunately for the blue commander, just barely not enough firepower there, and these missile trucks are now being jumped on by the Salamanders. Absolutely not where you want them to be. Salamander is quite sturdy, so those missiles kind of plink off their armor and don't really do all too much in the grand scheme of things. Salamander is not the craziest damage-dealing unit as far as raw DPS goes, but certainly their sturdiness well makes up for it. They can fire and fire again, and no matter how many rockets you shoot at them, they're going to keep on coming. I love these units. I love the little flame that shoots out of their heads, by the way, when they fire as well. It's the little details that really matter. Resurrected Salamanders. Sure, why not? Resbots trying their best here for shutdown. This is so much damage, though. Yeah, we have these maces just wandering through here. It's not a lot. It's not a crazy metal sacrifice, sorry, of 840 metal. Well, you know what? Maybe I spoke too soon. 840 metal is certainly substantial. But still, though, 840 metal, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if you manage to take out 4, 5, 6 metal extractors with all that, plus all the time that those metal extractors go down and aren't producing metal, it can easily tick up to be extremely valuable. Now we're up to a big medium tank ball. So we've got the salamanders and the medium tanks, plus the poison arrow on top of it all. Definitely going to be making this a very, very difficult situation for the blue player, who is effectively fighting a 1v2 at this point. Maybe even a 1v3, depending on how much the tan player contributes here as well. The Seafoam Green Commander effectively wiped out of this game. Going to have to rebuild from scratch. Essentially nothing left here. Papa Smurf TV has the lab and has a couple constructors, but other than that, I mean, there's no energy economy whatsoever. We have a couple of wind turbines still up and running, but aside from that, there's really not all too much holding this together right now. Big old hovercraft push over here. Algaroth trying to sneak some of these hover tanks forward and through the defenses right here of the Orange Commander. Tons and tons of salamanders were produced, though, and that's the problem. Salamanders definitely outclass the hover tanks. Hover tanks kind of like a tier 1, no, sorry, a tier 0.7, a tier not 0.7, whereas the amphibious tanks are kind of like a tier 1.5. I would almost consider them. Technically, they come out of a T2 gantry, but as you can see, they can come out of the amphibious complex too. So I feel like they're somewhere between T1 and T2. Certainly would consider them closer to T2, though, as far as how much health they have and how much damage they can do, how much effective range they have throughout the battlefield. Wasps up in the air do manage to snipe a commander on the northern side. Excellent pick-off right there, and these wasps aren't done yet. They're going to try and kill all these little thugs that push forward from Devdara. Glad to see that we're trying to make some contributions. But yeah, this is so much damage. Beautiful, beautiful plays right here by the red team. Continuing to exploit this opening right here. We desperately need this line to be choked off right here. If all these units stop flooding through from this lane, this will be perfectly fine for the blue team, and it would be incredibly recoverable even, just with how much range they push forward on this front line right here. But the fact that these units are just walking through, these aren't assault units, mind you. These are thugs and rocketeers, some of the slowest T1 units in the game, and they're just casually walking through. Thank goodness the wasps are here to try and clean some of this up, but it's a little too late. Already so much damage has been done to the blue commander. Purple commander continuing to push forward over here. There is that seaplane platform. For some reason I thought it was a seaplane gunship platform, but no, it's just a seaplane platform. There go those hover tanks pushing forward. A little bit slow on the draw here. I feel like if we had pushed these tanks forward just as that push coming through on the northern side had went away, I think maybe it would have been a little bit better here. Akumu trying to self-D the commander, I think, to take down the gunships. In the end, didn't actually manage to do so, but at the very least, I saw the attempt. Continuing to barrage down these T1 units with the gunships. The blue team has got to be thankful at this point that these gunships exist, because otherwise they would have been ravaged a whole lot longer ago. They're essentially the only answer that the blue team has to these thugs. And they're not a great answer, right? I mean, they're effective and they're efficient, to say the very least, but they're just kind of a band-aid. Hover tanks pushing forward right now. Oh, the other thing about those wasps, the reason why they're not great at clearing all that out is that they tend to overkill quite a lot, especially T1. So you actually don't get to reclaim nearly as much metal from those engagements as you would if, say, you cleaned it up with other T1 units. Eventually, these hover tanks, I mean, they take out a couple of these wind turbines over here, but realistically speaking, Sargeras has plenty of economy still on the back of this. Torpedo hunters come up over here to try and take down the gantry. That's quite nice. Oh, seaplane just barely didn't make it out of that. And here we go. Finally, we see some T2 hitting the battlefield for shutdown, who couldn't rely on his teammates for tech, instead having to go into a T2 gantry based off of the economy that he already had. Obviously not an uncommon occurrence, but it does mean that he's a little bit behind the curve of the red team, who has crumbled on the front lines effectively, but has bought plenty of time for the back line to come up to speed. You can see a full-blown T2 economy right here for Irish Stud, going to be going into those T2 units, as well as for Max Chaos here, the Tan Commander. Lightning tanks and bulls, definitely a convincing army. Convincing enough to keep those units unballed at the very least here. The more balled up those units are, the more effective the Armada units are against them, which is kind of a difficult concept to fight against, because part of microing involves keeping your units together, but not so together that they take maximum damage. It's very tricky. Spy camera over here. Looks like it's going to be detected. Nice. Very nice. This army is looking dangerous. We have heavy tanks. We have salamanders. I would call these semi-heavy tanks, maybe. They need a new weight class. They really do. What does the game call them? Medium heat ray amphibious tank. Yeah, I would say they're probably a little better than medium heat ray amphibious tanks. I would probably call them light heavy amphibious tanks. Maybe that's what medium means, though. Certainly a different weight class than the medium tank. Although I will say the medium tank is still extremely sturdy. One of its finer attributes. Wow. Just Torpedo launchers are extremely loud. I hope those aren't as loud on the you know, final end screen here. They're extremely loud in my ear for some reason. I'm not sure why. Beautiful bombing run, by the way. Mr. Tumnus going for some of those tanks here with the gunships. I think it's a great idea. Heavy bomber gets involved over here as well to try and deploy some of those high-impact Cortex T2 bombs to the situation. Very nice to see. Can we please turn it off? What is going on over here? No idea why, but that thing is extremely loud. Extraordinarily loud. Feels like an audio glitch or something. Anywho, massive resurrected army here. It is quite nice, especially if you can keep those resbots around. I'm not sure if we did. No, it doesn't look like the blue player does have those resbots anymore. Those resbots can be extremely, extremely finicky. Sometimes they move just a little further than you were expecting them to, and suddenly you lose all 20 of them. If we had them around, though, I would say this is probably a good enough trade. You can always fall backwards here, lose a bunch of the metal extractors and all your forward ground, but you kill the enemy's army, and then you push forward with your remnants, and eventually you're in a fine enough position to just rebuild your army out of the scraps of the dead. Shut down with some nice D-guns there, trying to push back the forces of the red and orange commanders. A couple of tan bulls squeaking through here as well, though. Alert, 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 cries the blue commander. Being pushed by 3 different armies at once, on multiple different angles, trying desperately to hold this front line together. A little bit more aggression has come through here as a couple of those halberds have pushed forward. Halberds quite powerful, very sturdy, and do a significant amount of damage. Certainly not to be underestimated. Here you can see about 4% per blast on one of those Tiger heavy assault tanks. Give you some sense of scale for how impactful they can be. You can see a whole lot more when that flanking bonus is added on too. Always cool. Yeah, I think these halberds can actually do a huge amount of damage here. Ravaging the base right here of the Tan Commander. Doing a significant amount of work and blasting us all to pieces. We do need to focus down the build power, though. Taking out that build power should be absolute priority number 1. You take out the build power and all of this crumbles a whole lot easier. Ah, even that said. Oh, it's close. It's real close. Oh, just barely that halberd doesn't manage to take down that T2 lab. That was extremely, extremely close right there. Gunships finally jumping on top of these heavy tanks over here. I think we were rebuilding these gunships after they got caught. Lovely, lovely play right here. I'd love to see a whole bunch more of those resbots pumped out. We're already onto T2 vehicles, so it'd be a little awkward to transition back into that T1 tech. But a bunch of resbots picking up this whole army and turning it against your opponent, I think it would be really, really beneficial right here. We have the reclaim vehicle sent out here to scavenge the battlefield. Another excellent use for those resbots, obviously, would be to use them as a little bit of a reclamation force, if you will. T2 lab coming up right here for the purple commander. A little bit injured. I imagine we were reclaiming it at one point and then changed our minds and then changed our minds once more, and now we're going to build it. All the way forward, it will be pushed through. That purple economy is going to start skyrocketing. I'm imagining we're going to go for at least a fusion reactor and maybe a couple of energy converters. We have plenty of metal sitting around in the bank. I think it'd be a fabulous idea right now. Elgaroth controlling a significant portion of the map, actually. And yeah, using that advantage nicely here, actually. Applying a little bit of pressure here to the flank of the red team, sort of relieving that pressure otherwise from the force of the blue player, or for the face of the blue player. Gunships, by the way, tried to take down the fusion reactor up here, didn't manage to snipe it, so it does mean that the yellow commander will get to keep their precious, precious economy intact. Halberds have run out of APM, and they will stop moving here as well, which is a bit of a shame as those heavy tanks start to barrage them with the never-ceasing fire of resounding condensed matter projectile. At least there's a couple of anti-air ships to shoot down some of those T2 gunships, but man, 2 volleys to kill a single gunship is unimpressive, to say the very least. Yeah, T1 anti-air. The light anti-air. Not going to be tremendous. Devdara using this positional advantage to transition into a T2. How on earth did we not reclaim this commander? I could have sworn that Papa Smurf TV had a huge advantage. At one point, I think the tanks were up on this high ground. Yeah, that's definitely a little bit of a missed opportunity right there. Maybe a massive missed opportunity. Snipe the commander and then just let the wreckage lie right there, where that's easily a couple thousand metal just lying between all these units here. Glad to see the Devdara is taking advantage of the wreckage fields here, even if only momentarily. Still, though, that Resbot pulling 50 metal a second out of that grave field still paid for itself and then some by reclaiming some of those corpses. Almost always efficient to build those Resbots because they can reclaim so efficiently and essentially turn themselves into their own payment plan. Full-blown T2 economy up and running right here for the Green Commander. Love to see that we're continuing to expand the wind turbine farms as well. It's a very cheap, relatively inexpensive way of continuing to further the investments. We also have some T2 going around building T2 metal extractors. That's great. And there's one way to keep your team in on a losing front, and I would definitely say the blue team is on the back foot here. What you can always go for is just helping build your teammates' economy. Air players have, as of recently, I would say, definitely been looking into different ways of becoming support. Certainly makes a lot of sense, especially if you're playing as a Cortex commander. As an Armada commander, it's almost always a no-brainer to go into a whole bunch of those EMP bombers. Extremely, extremely efficient on the front lines. You can almost always end up changing the tides of virtually any battle in which they're applied. One of those things that you just have to be aware of when you're going Armada T2 Air. But certainly not a bad idea to use those T2 aircraft to actually help your fellow brethren reach those metal extractors that otherwise are a little inconvenient to try and upgrade to T2 here. Speaking of inconvenient metal extractors, there are a bunch up on these hills right here. Very difficult to reach. Always great if you can send an air constructor up there to build those, because virtually never will they be sniped. You have to get gunships or bombers or something like that up there in order to take them down. My goodness, we still haven't plugged this hole. Oh no. 1467. Sort of choosing to eco up right here, but leaving his team in the dust to do it. Fiend's marching through, and at this point the blue player is looking at this one more time and saying, my goodness, how many more times do I have to be ran by before eventually these units will stop coming? And the answer, lovely as it is for the red team, is never. They should never stop taking advantage of this massive, massive run by, whoops, opportunity path. Fiends continuing to push forward. I love to see it. Yeah, that's great. T3 hitting the battlefield. So skeptical about the Shiva. Can't help but feel like as of lately we really see the Shiva fall out of grace. Face first into the dirt is just about exactly how I feel like the Shiva are right now. They're relatively cheap, relatively easy to set up. They're amphibious, which is also nice. They have that siege missile, which can be quite powerful, definitely useful for bypassing shields. But other than that, I mean, as far as T3 goes, I just can't help but wonder if they're a better option. A couple of Karganeth, for instance, sent to the front lines. It is, I believe it's, I want to say 2 Shiva to 1 Karganeth here. A little less than that, yeah. 1,500 for a Shiva versus 2,500 for a Karganeth. So about, well, an extra 1,000 metal to build a Karganeth. So yeah, I guess you could say it's almost 2 Shiva to 1 Karganeth. It's a little off, but close enough for beyond all reason work. Papa Smurf, you have reclaimed this entire area using the T2 transition of your opponent as the means of paying for all this ground that you're going to get. The question on everyone's mind is, when are we going to go for that T2 transition? The fabled T2 transition. You can see the APM spread a little thin here as the Seafoam Green Commander now has this base up north here that he's trying to micro and keep alive and control and all that sort of stuff, while sort of neglecting this base down south here. A bit unfortunate as it is, because this base could certainly be the solution to this problem of units running straight through over here. Starlight's coming up here, which is excellent to see. Exactly the unit you want to build in mass against a full-blown T2 vehicle army, especially if they're going to be going into Bulls or those Zars, for instance, even the Tiger tanks. Starlight's extremely, extremely efficient at dealing with this sort of stuff. Gunships up north here, trying to fire away at all this. There is some anti-air though, so that's always nice to see. Starlight's caught. Shiva reinforcements are here to back up all these heavy tanks and medium tanks and light tanks and every other type of tank that's here battling on the front line. But man, those Shiva are well known for their friendly fire. There go those Tiger tanks. Ignoring the army over here in favor of going after a little bit of the economy. There we go, we catch a Starlight as well. 1,200 metal apiece for one of those Starlights. Very expensive unit. Now, if these Shiva are unaccompanied, that's the word I was looking for, by a bunch of Resbots, I don't think they're going to be effective at all on this front line. They're great, don't get me wrong, they're shutting down these Bulls. Definitely what the blue team is looking for right here. Are they going to be enough? I think the Shiva should abandon this push right here. Let this be cleaned up by the Cyan Commander, by the Blue Commander, and send the Shiva forward right now. Yeah, they're being distracted by these units, but you can imagine there's essentially no units over here. There's a couple of Bulls straggling out, just sort of the reinforcing forces. If those Shiva march forwards right now, where these Bulls are in the back line, they would have effectively no counter from the red team. I think that could be a play of the game right there. Red team, by the way, taking control of this island on the southern side somehow. And I guess once the purple player sort of abandoned it in favor of going into the water, it meant that this area was open for claim. Those T2 constructor, so a little bit worse for wear. T1 lab pumping out grunts at this point. We have a single flak truck blasting way over here. I love the flak trucks. I think they could be extremely useful when applied correctly. And here we go. Suddenly, Papa Smurf TV, once more recoiling from the loss of an entire facility. We do have a fusion reactor up here, so I think these wind turbines that are about to go down for the blue commander aren't, at the end of the day, going to mean all too much. Still, better not to lose them than to. Do we have any more of those gunships, by the way? Can't help but feel like, oh, well, maybe not quite necessary. Boom goes the base as the blue player takes a massive thermonuclear detonation directly to the noggin. Gonna be difficult to rebuild from that one. Shutdown definitely reeling on the back foot here. No energy for a D-gun. Thinking about self-D'ing the commander here. Not gonna matter at all. Commander gets blasted away here. Starlight's also without any sort of, well, anything, any power, any will to live, any morale, rather. I'm sure they have morals, but they're probably just alien and confusing to us human viewers. Who knows what morals a giraffe might have? I certainly don't. Build power has crumbled right here for Algarath. Cries out for help. None shall be received. There we go. Cyan Commander stepping up to the plate. Took the loss of the entire team in order for the Cyan Commander to start pumping out some units here, but eventually, I guess a little late is better than never. Sharpshooters weren't built up in critical enough of a mass, though. You know I love that sharpshooter welder composition, but you need 10 or 20 sharpshooters in order to counter this effectively. We've got at this point 2. Holding out for 3. Heavy tanks, absolutely the name of the game today. Whoops, that's the mute button. Accidentally hit that once and scared everybody in the comment section. The amount of comments I got on that video because I didn't explain that I hit the mute button from people that said they thought their audio equipment had faltered. Unreal. I promise you it's 99% most likely my mistake. 2 bulls. Ooh, and 2 bulls and a thermo nuke. Name a better start to a bad joke. Those bulls would have done the job, I do believe, but the nuke certainly did it a whole hell of a lot quicker. And just like that, the purple commander also resigns from the match. Understandable, as certainly it's going to be difficult to rebuild after that. Commander, with its last hollow order, is going to move forward here. Mr. Tumnus now on the back foot, going to be forced to deal with some of these bulls. The first bulls, I believe, that the red commander, or sorry, the lime green commander has dealt with yet. Purple commander. It's a husk of its former self. Nothing going on up in the gears of that Cortex commander's head. Down it goes. Blasted to smithereens by those 2 backline bulls. Always love to see that. Sharpshooters continuing to try and blast away these heavy tanks, but those heavy tanks are sturdy. More than happy to continue going on a tear here, tearing down metal extractors and Papa Smurf TV. Still hoping that the T1 can carry him through. I'm fearful that the Seafoam Green Commander is going to learn a lesson quite rapidly here as these Sheldons start to build up in vast number. Why exactly it is that D2 transition is so incredibly important. Rosemots here making all the difference, and at this point, the blue team has lost most of their hope. It's going to take a tremendous play in order to come back here. The Shiva could certainly be the hope that they need. Cortex Commander turning into a sideways pipe fixture here. Not sure exactly why. I guess he had a new existence calling to him there. Things are looking quite dire right here for the blue team. Maybe the Shiva could snipe 2 of these commanders, though. Are these the last 2? Oh, these are the last 2 red commanders. My goodness. Keeping them on the front line like this is extremely dangerous. The red team definitely needs to pull these back. You can almost imagine these purple Shiva just marching down south here. They find Irish Stud 14. They find Max Chaos. I mean, it's not like these commanders would be able to go anywhere the Shiva couldn't follow. And suddenly they're obliterated. The blue team with actually an insane amount of opportunities here. They need only acknowledge them. Anti-nuke shoots down that nuke right here from the yellow commander. Lovely stuff. Took 2 bases, but eventually everybody was covered in anti-nuke here. 1467, making one last valiant stand. We do have the rocket spiders pushing up this hillside here. Quite nice, I suppose. A couple of Webbers there as well. Reclaim all the wreckages, which is always cool. Yeah, the Cyan Commander, I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking at this army that he just inherited from his teammate and wondering, what on earth? Why is there still so many maces? Fiend's about to have a field day pushing through all this. There we go, yeah. 1467 as well as Tumnus inheriting everything here. Fortunately, when you inherit a whole lot of the stuff, it's very easy to lose track of exactly what you actually have. Sheldon. Making fun of the Maces, it feels like. Yeah. Kind of just taunting them, teasing them. Oh, you can't get us. We'll just fire away at you from miles and miles away. There it is. The blue team finally realizes there was no hope holding out here, as the red team just had too much of a tremendous economic advantage. Plus that nuclear launcher and all the units that are about to move forward. I think the red team did a fabulous job of continuing to express tons and tons of pressure right here through this open line and eventually secure the W. Beautiful game on a map that I absolutely love. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section below, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.